These aren't people. These are animals. And we're taking them out of the country at a level and at a rate that's never happened before.
Local elected officials met the president in Washington today as he hammered California for its sanctuary state law.
Anytime people have rights and then you try to take them away, there is going to be an outcry. We know from PPIC polls, 70% of Californians want this option.
The state attorney general says he'll appeal a ruling striking down the state's right to die legislation. And for one film critic anyway, live music elevates an already striking film to spiritual heights. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. Today, San Diego County politicians tell President Trump California's sanctuary state law hurts public safety. This as the San Diego City Council votes to support the legislation limiting cooperation between law enforcement and immigrant agents. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman has more.
We are with you. We need to build that wall. We need to end the sanctuary state.
Thank you, sir.
Wednesday, Escondido Mayor Sam Abed met with President Trump at the White House.
This narrative that sanctuary city will allow more immigrants to report crime is fake news, Mr. President.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. It's an honor to be here. I'm Kristen Gaspar.
He was part of a group of California politicians who are against SB 54, including San Diego County Supervisor Kristen Gaspar.
Governor Brown makes San Diego a great place to commit a crime because you have options.
She told Trump that San Diego is fighting back against the state's legislation.
And we're all in because we're going to fight to protect our public safety, and we are going to speak freely about this issue until we can look back at our own children and guarantee their safety in our community.
In April, both the Escondido City Council and the San Diego County Board of Supervisors voted to support a federal lawsuit against California and SB 54.
Adjourn to closed session.
But yesterday, the San Diego City Council decided otherwise.
Several cities and counties are preparing an amicus brief in support of the state legislation. The motion passed 5-2.
Mayor Kevin Faulkner disagrees with the council's vote, saying San Diego's approach to public safety is working just fine.
Because you want to have people have confidence in the police department to report crimes, that trust in that community with our department, with individuals, I think we've had the right balance.
The local ACLU says SB 54 does create that right balance.
SB 54 ensures that immigrants who are victims of crimes will come forward and report crimes.
The human rights group says Gaspar and Abed meeting with Trump at the White House does nothing for San Diegans.
It is clear that the Trump administration only seeks to score political points with its base of supporters through this lawsuit.
Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Sheriffs at a White House roundtable expressed their frustration today. They say that they welcome a chance to work with federal agents and say they need clarity on state and federal law.
Now ICE is the only law enforcement agency that cannot use our databases to find the bad guys. They cannot come in and talk to people in our jail unless they reach a certain threshold. They can't do all kinds of things that other law enforcement agencies can do. And it's really put us in a very bad position. It's a disgrace.
And we're suing on that, and we're working hard, and I think it'll all come together. Because people want it to come together. It's so ridiculous. The concept that we're even talking about it is so ridiculous. We'll take care of it, Margaret.
Thank you. There could be an MS-13 gang member I know about. If they don't reach a certain threshold, I cannot tell ICE about them.
Yeah. We have people coming into the country or trying to come in. We're stopping a lot of them. But we're taking people out of the country. You wouldn't believe how bad these people are. These aren't people. These are animals.
We'll continue to follow the Sanctuary City debate on air and online at kpbs.org. California's Attorney General says the state plans to appeal a ruling yesterday blocking the state's right to die law. The law has been in place since 2016 and it allows terminally ill patients who meet certain criteria to end their lives with drugs prescribed by a doctor. The law's co-author says she is shocked to hear of the judge's ruling.
This bill had more transparency, had more debate, had more public input than any other bill that people have seen passed in a really long time. This piece of legislation had, a lot of attention on it. There was hours and hours of debate in both houses, and then ultimately signed by the governor.
A Riverside County judge ruled lawmakers violated the law by passing the measure during a special session. The state wants answers about how San Diego officials handled the Hep A outbreak. Today, the Joint Legislative Audit Committee approved an audit of the city's response to the epidemic. This at the request of Assemblyman Todd Gloria. The hepatitis outbreak killed 20 people locally and infected nearly 600 last year. Gloria says an audit is needed to better handle future emergencies. City and county officials have been criticized for not responding quickly enough to the outbreak and for not sufficiently addressing the homelessness crisis. State officials estimate the audit will take about 5 months. Campaign mailers can play off voters' emotions and fears. Sometimes they can be confusing. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen takes a look at one such mailer in the race for District 4 County Supervisor.
Nathan Fletcher protecting our right to bear arms, standing up to gun-grabbing liberals. That's some of the text on this mailer, which sounds like it should be targeting NRA-supporting Republicans. In fact, it was sent to registered Democrats and funded by the conservative Lincoln Club. Fletcher used to be a Republican and has cast votes against gun control, but he's been a Democrat since 2013 and now fully supports gun control. He says he left the GOP because the party was changing.
And I saw a Republican Party just stray further and further and further to the right. But along that same time and trajectory, I changed. And as we go through life, we have experiences that change how we view things and how we shape things.
Fletcher says these Lincoln Club mailers are trying to steer Democratic voters to a weaker candidate in the race. Keep in mind, the county supervisors have little authority over gun control. To get the full story behind this mailer and to learn more about all 5 candidates in the D4 County Supervisors race, go to kpbs.org. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
California's 76th State Assembly District in North County is the only open assembly seat in San Diego this year. The seat will be vacated by Republican Rocky Chavez, who's running for Congress. KPBS North County reporter Allison St. John says voter registration in the district has changed significantly, making this a competitive race.
Voter registration in the 76th Assembly District has changed significantly since Rocky Chavez was elected in 2012. No Democrats even entered the race back then. The 76th includes Oceanside, Camp Pendleton, and parts of Carlsbad, Encinitas, and Vista, traditionally Republican strongholds. But this year, Democratic and Republican voter registrations are running almost neck and neck. So when incumbent Rocky Chavez jumped into the race for Darrell Issa's congressional seat, both Republicans and Democrats jumped in to replace him. The Republican candidates are Vista City Councilwoman Amanda Rigby, Jerome Stocks, who served on Encinitas City Council, and Maureen Moe Muir of the San Diego Union High Board of Education. Phil Graham, a businessman and stepson of former Governor Pete Wilson, is endorsed by the Republican Party and is the top fundraiser in the race. Thomas Kraus ran unsuccessfully for the seat in 2016. The Democrats are Elizabeth Warren, a former journalist and progressive activist, and Tasha Burner Hervarth, who's on the Encinitas City Council. The Democratic Party has not endorsed one over the other. San Diego is divided into 7 state assembly districts. 3 are represented by Democrats, 3 by Republicans. The June primary is likely to set up a battle in San Diego's North County coastal cities for the 76th that will only be resolved in November. In the KPBS North County Bureau, Allison St. John, KPBS News.
For the past few days, we've been looking at the voting records of local candidates and how many times they've failed to cast their ballots. For the final installment in this series, KPBS reporter Claire Tragesser talks with Jade Hyman about the elections congressional candidates missed. Welcome back, Claire. Tell us about the congressional candidates.
So today we're going to be talking about the two most hotly contested congressional races locally in the 49th and 50th district. We can start with the 49th, where the incumbent Darrell Issa is not running for re-election, and so we are looking at the candidates hoping to replace him.
And of those candidates, who missed the most elections?
A candidate named Danielle St. John missed 19 elections. That's every election since 2000 except the last presidential elections, the primary and the general election. And I reached out to her campaign for a statement and didn't hear back from them. And then among the other candidates, a few stand out. Joshua Schoonover missed every election except two back through 2003. And I reached out to his campaign for a statement, and he says he's an independent thinker. Quote, "Since 2003, I have made every effort to participate and place votes to get rid of swampy politicians and dangerous policies." And then Paul Kerr missed 11 elections, including 3 presidential elections. And he also missed several midterm elections, which means he often didn't vote for the congressional seat that he is hoping to sit in. And when I reached out to his campaign, he sent a statement explaining why. And he says that, quote, "The election of Donald Trump crystallized the realization that I couldn't stand on the sidelines." And then among the other major candidates, Kristen Gaspar missed 5 elections, Sarah Jacobs missed 2, Diane Harkey missed 1, and Rocky Chavez and Doug Applegate missed none.
Wow, so now I've got to ask about the 50th Congressional District. How did they do?
Okay, a little bit better. There, the incumbent Congressman Duncan Hunter missed 10 elections, including the presidential primary in 2004. I asked his campaign for a statement, and they didn't respond. However, I pulled his voting records for a story back in 2016, and at that time, his campaign did send a statement that said, quote, "I'm sure he won't even recall some or many of these." He said Hunter was on a combat tour in 2006 and 2007, which would make it harder to vote because making it home alive is more important than following campaigns. And then among his opponents, Josh Butner missed the most with 11 elections missed, including 5 presidential elections. He didn't vote in the last presidential primary when Hillary Clinton was running against Bernie Sanders. And what's also interesting is that while Butner is now running as a Democrat, he only registered with the party in August 2016, a little less than 2 years ago. And he was a registered Republican from 2007 to 2010. And when we reached out to them, his campaign sent a statement that didn't really address any of this, but it says that he served in combat deployments, quote, "in intense situations that did not allow for much focus on anything else." And then his other opponent, Amar Najjar, missed 4 elections, including the 2016 presidential primary. And his campaign sent a long statement in response to our request. Part of it says that he was disenchanted by politics when he was younger, but then was inspired by the 2008 election of Barack Obama, and that of course doesn't explain why he didn't vote in the last presidential primary. And then we can also note that Republican Bill Wells missed 5 elections.
Wow, well, all of this is very fascinating. Remind us again where we can find all the information.
So we are posting all the elections that all candidates missed, along with a statement if they sent them, for city races, county races, and congressional races. And you can find all of that at kpbs.org/missed.
Claire, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And you can see all of our election coverage at kpbs.org/election.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, North Korea threatens to abandon a historic summit with the U.S. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Morning clouds make way for plenty of afternoon sunshine with no sign of rain in the near future. Julia Wyden has the forecast.
Hi, good evening. Decent day that we've had so far, and I think that as we go into the next few days, we should be staying relatively quiet compared to some of our neighbors nearby. As we take a look at what's happening on satellite and radar, you don't see a whole lot going on at the moment, but there's going to be a good amount of cloud cover building in our coastal spots as we head through the overnight. Here's what's happening. Well off to the north and east, there's an area of low pressure in place. That's around the Great Basin, and that's causing some showers and storms to develop in spots. You're seeing that, of course, over the Sierra Nevadas, over towards Reno. Now, down here in Southern California, we're not necessarily getting any rain from that system, but we are getting onshore flow as a result of where that area of low pressure is placed. Because of that onshore flow, we're getting coastal clouds to develop during the overnight that will last through the morning and in some cases even on into the afternoon. Tonight we'll dip down to 60 degrees. The cloud cover will increase. As we take a look around the area, you'll see temps up towards Oceanside that will be cooler in the low 50s. Chula Vista going to be around 56 degrees tonight. Ramona dipping into the 40s. As we head on into tomorrow, expect to see those clouds along the coast to start the day, but they should reveal more sunshine through the afternoon. Meanwhile, the farther east you go, the more likely it is that you'll have sunshine. Temperature in San Diego, 66 degrees. Looking into the weekend, that area of low pressure is going to continue to cause showers and thunderstorms well off to the north. We continue with our onshore flow. Temperatures are going to be, I think, warm for folks in the desert areas, but not as hot as we've been recently. At the coast, we'll have highs for the weekend in the low 70s. We'll have low clouds to start off both Saturday and Sunday. Then those clouds will break apart as we get into the afternoon. Let's head farther inland. Temperatures here will be in the low 70s for the next several days, jumping up to about 76 by Sunday. Into the mountain region, temps will be in the 60s, a little cooler here, but pleasantly so. Finally, for the deserts, again, I mentioned that your temperature's not going to be as hot as they have been recently, but we're still talking 80s to 90s. Plenty of sunshine expected here. Saturday, 93, Sunday, 94. Back to you, Ebony.
Okay, I'm ready, Butch. All right, Bravo 7.
NASA astronauts left the relative safety of the International Space Station today for a high-flying, high-tech spacewalk. Their mission to shuffle components of the cooling system. Drew Feustel and Ricky Arnold are part of the 6-man crew on the station. They last took a spacewalk in March. There's another planned for next month. This Saturday, the San Diego Symphony will present the silent classic, The Passion of Joan of Arc. It's part of its Fox film series. The music collective Luscious Noise will perform live as the film plays. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando goes behind the scenes to explain why this is a noteworthy event.
Silent movies were never meant to be watched in silence. They were designed to be enjoyed with live music accompaniment. That's a treat modern audiences now only get as a novelty at special events like the one San Diego Symphony is holding. It's presenting Carl Dreyer's 1928 classic, The Passion of Joan of Arc. The Fox Theater, where the screening takes place, was built just a year after the film came out and was designed as a movie palace.
The Fox definitely was a movie palace, the grandest of its kind at that time. So it was the A ticket. I believe an admission to see a show here was something in the neighborhood of $2, which in those days might well have been half of your monthly entertainment budget.
So it's the perfect venue to make an event out of a screening of a nearly century-old film, says San Diego Symphony's J.D. Smith.
William Fox was very much a believer that the entertainment started at the front door, not just what was going on the screen of his movie palaces. So there's a lot of rich detail.
Like Art Deco detail in the rotunda, or a water fountain that once flowed in the lobby. Mr. Fox even placed his own image in the lobby decor.
But just so we know that none of this is to be taken seriously, we've got pigs with wings in some of the decorations up here. So there is definitely a touch of whimsy in all of this.
But the venue's also well designed for maximum enjoyment by the audience.
One of the ways that we really got lucky with this hall, certainly wasn't built for a symphony orchestra, but it was built for people to be close to the action on stage with the movie screen coming down.
And the acoustics are great.
It's about a 50-50 mix between the surfaces that are more smooth and the surfaces that have all of the moldings and the craziness going on. So some sound that's going to come off that stage is going to be reflected and some is going to be absorbed so that you get a nice balance and a nice resonation.
Smith has been programming silent films with the symphony for years.
I always knew that at some point I wanted us to show Carl Dreyer's The Passion of Joan of Arc. I always knew that I wanted some kind of a special treatment for this movie, not just the organ. And at the same time, one of our symphony musicians, our violinist John Stubbs, he has a musical group that he directs called Luscious Noise, and he had the idea at some point that he might want to also screen The Passion of Joan of Arc with music that he happened to hear along with it when he was just at home one day, and that's this John Luther Adams piece in The White Silence. And so this is happening. This is a movie that really doesn't pull any punches. It's quite historical for a number of reasons. Number one, it was one of the very first docudramas in that actual transcripts from Joan's trial are the basis of a lot of the dialogue of the film. I find it a remarkable film because it's a film about a woman who is finally allowed to speak, but she isn't really heard. They don't really listen to what she is saying because the men running the trial have their own agendas, and it all comes to a terrible end. It's inexorable, and you feel that as you're watching the film, and I think John Luther Adams' music will be a good reflection of that. The film on its own is quite striking and memorable, one of the greatest films ever made, bar none. But I think with this accompaniment, it's going to have a little something extra that I think people will find very moving and very memorable.
The film's sense of religious transcendence will be further elevated by Adams' music performed live, thus turning a gorgeous old movie palace into something of a cinema church. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
The Passion of Joan of Arc screens Saturday night at 8 at Copley Symphony Hall with live music from Luscious Noise. A chance encounter with the late Bob Ross inspired a boy in Florida to pursue a career in law enforcement. PBS Central Florida shows us how this police sketch artist uses his passion for art.
Whenever there's a significant crime that happened, I will meet with the victim or the witness of the crime and see if they can recall what the person looked like that committed it. My whole life, I've wanted to be a police officer, and I've always had a passion for art. When I was 11 years old, flipping through the channels, and on PBS, Bob Ross was on. You know, this guy's knocking these paintings out in a half hour, and it looks easy. So I saved up a few months, and I went up and I bought the Bob Ross paint set, and I started knocking out these oil paintings. My parents have a radio show, and they said, we have a surprise for you. We got Bob Ross to come and be on the radio show. I was all excited. I'm like a kid in a candy store. I got all my oil paintings together, I grabbed them all, and I went to my dad's studio, and there he was, and I showed him my work. And he said, Chris, how about one day you and your family come out to my house, he lived in Longwood, and we'll do a painting. So we went out to his house, and we went into his studio, and he put one of the paintings that he had up on the wall. And he says, paint that painting. And he watched me paint it, and till this day, I still have that painting. That's when I knew that this was something that I wanted to do. That's something that just ran parallel throughout my life, was being an artist and wanting to be a police officer. A lot of times when I sit down with a victim, they're nervous, understandably. You're asking for someone to do this who just went through probably the most traumatizing time in their life. You're having them relive this horrible moment. You're telling them, hey, listen, take that guy that did this horrible thing to you, burn his image in your head, and tell me what he looks like. So the actual drawing part isn't difficult for me. It's getting the information out of them. It's easier to recognize somebody than it is to recall them. And the way I do that is I have a book, and it's broken down to different categories. Shapes of faces, different eyes, different noses, different mouths, and we just concentrate on each thing at a time.
But he may have had a scar or a tattoo on his face. I really couldn't tell.
Do you remember where?
Like under his eye.
And it was his left eye?
Yes, it was his left eye.
I don't show it to him as I draw it. Draw the whole thing, it's a preliminary sketch. And then when it's all said and done, I'll show it to them. I'll have them rate it, scale to 1 to 10.
I would rate that as probably a 7.
A 7?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm thinking that his cheeks may have been a bit fuller.
Once we agree on that, I then go back to the computer, I'll redraw it using the pencil sketch that I just did. I'll put a pose to the person, make them come to life, and airbrush it and make it look like the drawings you see. As an artist, I believe that to make a portrait, to make an image, you have to draw it. You know, you got to bring that out, and you got to make it come to life. The drawings that I create, they really look lifelike. It is very beneficial, especially when we can get a good drawing out of it. It really helps the detectives out a lot. It is very rewarding, just as it is for any detective or police officer on the street, anyone in law enforcement. If you can get the bad guy off, you're rewarded. And if this is the way I do it, it is very, very rewarding for me.
Now, here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, a chicken index, some Wall Street investors, and an unlikely whistleblower. The Planet Money podcast explains all. And on Midday Edition, enjoy the sights, sounds, and flavors of San Diego like a boss. San Diego City Beat's new summer guide tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.